The child and the initial discomfort. The first sign that something wasn't right did not come as a strange sentence or an elaborate account. It came as physical discomfort. The boy was 5 years old. He was healthy, active, spoke little for his age, but communicated well when he wanted to. He had no relevant medical history, no frequent nightmares, and showed no unusual interest in space, planets, or any subject that could explain what would come next. What began to draw attention was the way his body reacted to ordinary situations. On warmer days, while other children kept playing, he would stop. He would sit on the ground, lean his back against a wall, and breathe slowly, as if trying to control something coming from inside. He didn't complain of pain. He didn't cry. He simply said it was hard. When his mother asked what was hard, the answer was short: the air. At first, this was treated as sensitivity to heat. Water, shade, a pause, everything seemed to help, but the pattern repeated. Whenever the environment became stuffy, his body reacted even before any physical effort. There was another detail as well. He showed a sense of estrangement from his own body. On more than one occasion, when he felt sweat running down his face or neck, he would wipe his skin with his hand and stare at his fingers in silence. He didn't seem bothered. He seemed confused. "It wasn't like this," he said once, without anyone having asked anything. His mother asked him to explain. "Before, it didn't stick," he added. She assumed he was talking about his clothes. The subject ended there. A few days later, during the night, he woke up sitting on his bed. He wasn't crying, he wasn't screaming, he was simply breathing in a short, irregular way. His father approached, thinking it might be a nightmare. "It's hot," he said. The room was cool. His father touched his face. His skin was warm, but nothing out of the ordinary. Even so, the boy kept breathing as if the air weren't enough. "It's better here," he murmured, pointing to the open window. That was the first time he used the word "here" in a strange way, not as someone referring to a room, but as someone comparing two places. Over time, small sentences began to appear, always out of context, always spoken naturally, as if they were obvious observations. "Here, it cools down at night," he said during a warm shower. "Here, the body can handle more," he commented while climbing a short flight of stairs. No one understood. There was no emotion attached to these statements, no fear, no excitement, just matter-of-fact observation. His mother tried to engage him. "Where is here?" she asked. He shrugged. "Here now." The discomfort wasn't constant. He played, laughed, got distracted, but as soon as the environment became stuffy, his body reacted again. His breathing changed, his movements slowed, his gaze drifted for a few seconds as if he were comparing sensations. It was during one of these pauses that the sentence appeared clearly for the first time. They were sitting on the living room floor. The fan was on. The boy was playing with a toy car, pushing it slowly across the rug. Suddenly, he stopped, dropped the toy, and stared at his own hands. "This body is weak," he said. His mother thought he had misheard. "What?" "This body," he repeated, squeezing his fingers as if testing their strength. "It gets tired fast." She asked why. The boy thought for a few seconds, as if trying to organize something that didn't come in complete words. "Because it's not the first one." The silence that followed wasn't dramatic. It was confused. "What do you mean, not the first?" his mother asked carefully. He shrugged. "There was another one before." That was the first time anyone considered, even for a second, that he wasn't talking about imagination, not because of what he said, but because of how he said it. Effortless, without any attempt to get attention. "Where?" his father asked from the kitchen doorway. The boy didn't answer right away. He picked up the toy car again, pushed it a few more inches, and then said, "It wasn't here." That answer marked a subtle change in the family's behavior. In the following days, the boy began to clearly distinguish between two bodily experiences. "Here, the air goes in easily," he said once. "There, it didn't." "Where is there?" He closed his eyes for a moment. "Before I came." It was at that moment that it became clear this story didn't begin here. It began before birth. And if you've noticed that something about this child doesn't sound like imagination, if this bodily discomfort, these out-of-context phrases, and this comparison between two bodies have already caught your attention, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Stories like this don't appear in isolation. They follow a pattern, and the next signs usually emerge before anyone is ready to hear them. Block 2. The first impossible memories. After that sentence in the car, "That's how it started," the family did not begin asking more questions. The questions began to surface on their own, provoked by the boy's behavior, not by the adult's curiosity. Something new was happening. The statements stopped being isolated observations and began to form sequences. They were not complete stories. They were fragments that fit together through the body, not through logic. On an ordinary morning, while getting dressed to go out, the boy stopped with his t-shirt in his hands. The fabric had not yet touched his body. He stood still for a few seconds, holding the shirt in mid-air. "Here we cover ourselves," he said, as if recalling a rule. His mother asked why. He answered without looking at her. "Because here it changes." She did not press further. Later that same day, while walking down the street, the boy slowed his pace. He was not tired, he was not distracted. He simply reduced his speed as if calculating his own effort. "I didn't walk like this there," he commented. "What do you mean?" his mother asked. He made a vague gesture with his hand. Too slow didn't work. There wasn't time. This was the first clear indication that in that other place, time mattered. The memories began to appear always tied to specific physical sensations, never to beautiful images, never to elaborate visual details, always to the body in relation to the environment. When the air felt still, he complained. "Here the wind helps," he would say. When it rained, he would watch in silence for a few minutes and then commented, "There, it didn't fall like this." "How did it fall?" they asked. He thought. "It didn't fall, it stayed on top." No one understood what that meant, not even he seemed entirely sure. But the way he spoke made it clear he was not inventing. He was trying to translate an old sensation with new words. During bath time, another detail stood out. The boy avoided very hot water. Even when the bathroom was cold, he preferred lukewarm or cool water. "Like this, the body can handle it better," he explained. "Handle what?" He answered without hesitation. "Because the heat that doesn't go away." The sentence hung in the air. His mother began to notice that the boy made clear distinctions between here and before, always using bodily criteria. "Here the night helps," he said, once noticing that the temperature had dropped. "There it didn't help." "The night didn't cool things down?" He shook his head. "It stayed the same." These comparisons began to form an unsettling pattern. A place where the heat was constant, where the air was heavy, where the body had to adapt all the time just to keep functioning, and above all, a place where the environment offered no relief. At no point did the boy show curiosity about this before. He did not ask questions about what had happened. He only reacted when something in the present activated an old memory. One late afternoon, sitting in the backyard with the sun still strong, the boy closed his eyes for a few seconds. Sweat ran down his forehead. He was breathing short. "It's coming again," he said. "What is?" they asked. "The feeling." He placed a hand on his chest. It tightens here. It doesn't hurt. It just makes you tired. The description was not accompanied by fear. It came with familiarity. Did this happen before? His mother asked carefully. He nodded. Always. This was the first time he used that word in reference to the before. Always how long? His father asked. The boy opened his eyes and looked at the sky. Until it ended. No one asked what ended. In the days that followed, the boy began reacting even more specifically to simple situations. Climbing stairs, running for a few minutes, playing under the sun. In each of these, he took small strategic pauses. If you go straight through, the body fails, he explained. That logic had not been taught. It was not part of the routine of a 5-year-old. During a casual conversation, his mother tried to understand that perception better. Who taught you that? He answered naturally. I already knew. From where? He fell silent for a few seconds, then replied, from the other body. This was the first time he used that expression directly. Another body? His mother repeated. Yes, he said. The one that stayed there. The sentence was not emotionally charged. There was no dramatic pause, no suspense, just a statement. From that moment on, the distinction became clear even to him. It was not a confused memory. It was two different bodily experiences, separated by a break he could not explain in detail, but clearly recognized. This one works better, he said once, lightly tapping his own chest. But it also gets tired fast. And the other one? They asked. He thought. It could handle more until it couldn't. At that point, the memories began to organize themselves not just as sensations, but as a temporal sequence. First, the body functioned. Then it needed to adapt. Then it began to fail. And even without yet saying what happened at the end, the boy already treated that before as something finished. It doesn't exist anymore, he said when asked if he missed that place. Doesn't exist anymore what? The body from there. Block 2 ends with the clear perception that the child is not mixing imagination with reality. He is comparing two bodies, two environments, two distinct physical experiences, and that the memories beginning to surface don't speak of curiosity or adventure, but of adaptation, wear, and a process that ended definitively. Block 3. The world of the previous life. The memories did not come all at once. They organized themselves slowly as the boy began to recognize that what he was feeling was not just comparison, it was recollection. There was no curiosity about the place from before. There were no questions. There was only acceptance that the other body had lived in an environment with different rules. There, you already woke up tired, he said one morning, still lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. Here, you wake up better. The sentence did not sound like a complaint. It sounded like a technical observation. Over time, the boy began to describe a routine that did not seem extraordinary, but functional. There were no adventures, no remarkable events, just a body trying to exist in a difficult environment, day after day. You had to go slowly, he explained, always. They asked why. Because if you go fast, the air runs out, he answered, as if it were obvious. That logic appeared repeatedly. Everything in that place required conservation of effort, calculated movements, frequent pauses, controlled breathing. You learned early, he said, otherwise the body wouldn't last. His mother asked who taught that. He thought for a few seconds. Everyone knew, he replied. There was no need to teach it. There was no mention of specific people. There were no descriptions of faces, clothing, or buildings. The world always appeared as environment,
not as society. It was bright, he said once, but not clean. His mother asked him to explain. The sky stayed closed, he said, making a broad gesture with his hand above his head. You couldn't see far. He did not say sky as an astronomical concept. He said it as something present, constant, heavy. And the ground? They asked. Hot, always. The boy began to show a strange bodily knowledge of hot surfaces. He avoided sitting directly on the ground when it was under the sun. He preferred shaded places, even when there was no visible difference in temperature. That way, the body loses less, he explained. Less of what? He took a moment to answer. Strength. These words appeared frequently. Strength, endure, last, fail. It was as if the entire vocabulary of that previous life was organized around physical resistance. During a conversation in the late afternoon, while watching vapor rise from the hot asphalt of the street, he commented, "There it rose from the ground too." "Steam?" they asked. He shook his head. No, it was just heat coming out. The description was not scientific, it was sensory. "And the water?" his mother asked, almost without realizing it. The boy fell silent for a few seconds. "There was some," he answered slowly, "but it didn't help much." "Didn't help how?" "It heated up fast." That detail marked an important shift. For the first time, he mentioned something that stopped working. Until now, everything was adaptation. The body adjusted. The environment was difficult but manageable. Now the idea emerged that not everything responded the way it used to. "Before it was better," he said at another moment. "Later it got too heavy." "Heavy where?" they asked. He touched his own chest. "Here inside." The short breathing returned as he spoke about this, not as a crisis, but as an automatic response. "You had to stop all the time," he explained. "If not, it went dark." "Went dark where?" He pointed to his eyes. "Here." The boy did not seem frightened when he said this. He seemed to be remembering a known mechanism. "When it went dark, the body asked for the ground," he said. "Sitting helped." That pattern was exactly the same one the family now observed in his current life. The difference was that here, the body recovered quickly. "Here it comes back," he said, after one of those pauses. "There it took longer." This comparison began to reveal something fundamental. In that other place, the body did not fully recover. Each effort left a residue, a wear that did not disappear. "The heat stayed," he explained, "even when everything stopped." "Stopped what?" "Everything." His mother realized that whenever he spoke of this stopping, there was an implicit limit, a point beyond which the body did not return to normal. "And you kept going?" she asked. The boy nodded. "You had to keep going." "Why?" He answered without emotion, "Because it wasn't over yet." The sentence hung in the air. There was no drama in his voice, no anticipation, just the sense that that world followed an inevitable sequence and that he was inside it. "I knew when it was getting worse," he said later. "The body warned you first." "How did it warn you?" He closed his eyes. It got harder to pull the air in, and the head felt light. These descriptions began to repeat with small variations, always consistent, always tied to the same physical pattern. The boy did not speak of a specific event. He spoke of a process, a place where the body functioned, then adapted, then began to lose the ability to continue, silently and inevitably preparing the path towards the collapse that is yet to come. "You couldn't stay," he said once. "Why not?" He answered after a short pause, "Because the body wasn't made for that." Block 3 ends with the consolidation of this previous world, not as fantasy or an exotic setting, but as a real, hostile, and temporarily functional environment, where a body existed, adapted, and began to lose the ability to continue, silently and inevitably, preparing the path towards the collapse that is yet to come.
Block 4. When the body begins to lose response. The memories that surface from this point onward no longer come as occasional comparisons. They appear as warnings. The boy no longer speaks of that other place as something distant. He speaks like someone who recognizes signs he has seen before and knows exactly what they mean. "Now it's starting to feel the same," he said one morning, waking up sweaty even though the room was cool. His mother asked the same as what? He took a few seconds before answering. The end. That word began to appear more frequently, not as fear, as reference. The boy's body started reacting more intensely whenever he was exposed to continuous heat. It was no longer just fatigue, it was loss of response. During a short walk, he suddenly stopped. He didn't sit down slowly, he simply stopped where he was, arms hanging loosely at his sides. "I can't push anymore," he said. "Push what?" He touched his own chest. "This." His breathing was short and irregular. There was no panic, there was conservation. Every movement seemed calculated so as not to waste what little was still working. "That's how it was there," he explained after a few minutes. "When it started, it didn't stop anymore." They asked what started. The body forgetting how to respond. That sentence marked an important shift. Until then, the body failed because of effort. Now, it failed on its own. The boy described that in that other place, there came a moment when the body no longer obeyed even simple commands. "I would think about standing up," he said once, "but it wouldn't stand." "And what did you do?" He answered naturally, "I waited for it to pass." "Did it pass?" He shook his head. It never passed the same way. That difference was crucial. The body didn't return to its previous state. It returned smaller, weaker, slower. The boy began using a new word to describe this. The body got short. Short how? He searched for the words. Short of air, short of strength, short of everything. These descriptions came with clear physical reactions. His hands trembled lightly. His fingers opened on their own, as if there wasn't enough energy to keep them closed. "There, I stopped sweating," he said during one of those conversations. "Here, it still comes out." His mother asked why that mattered. "Because when it stops, it doesn't cool anymore," he explained. This was one of the most direct descriptions of the process. There was no longer regulation. The body stopped compensating. "The heat stayed trapped," he said, touching his chest and neck. There was nowhere for it to go. The boy described that at this stage, even thinking required effort. "The head felt light," he said, "like it was going to fall." "Did you fall?" He nodded. "Many times." "And did you get back up?" He shook his head. "Sometimes you couldn't." The family began to realize that these memories weren't coming only as recollections, they were coming as recognition of a path already taken. One late afternoon, the boy sat on the living room floor, leaned his back against the couch, and stayed there, motionless, staring at a fixed point. "Like this, you save," he said. "Save what?" "The rest." That word, rest, hung in the air. "Rest of what?" they asked. He answered after a short pause. "Of the body." From that point on, the memories began organizing themselves around a clear limit, a point where the body still functioned, even poorly, and another where it stopped responding entirely. "There was a day there when it didn't come back," he said quietly. "Didn't come back what?" "The body." There was no immediate explanation. The boy didn't go into detail. He simply acknowledged that there was a moment when the process passed the point of return.
I knew when it was getting close, he added. The air didn't go in the same way anymore. He demonstrated, drawing in a short, shallow breath without expanding his chest. This was how it was, he said. Trying deep didn't help. That description came with a disturbing detail. The body didn't fight, he explained. It just got weak. There was no struggle, there was no panic, there was a progressive shutdown. The legs stopped first, he said, then the arms. And then? They asked. He took longer to answer. Then it was hard even to stay awake. The boy described that at this stage, sounds felt distant, not because the environment changed, but because the body could no longer sustain attention. Everything got slow, he explained, like it was delayed. That sequence, short air, weakness, falling, loss of response, appeared repeatedly, always with small variations, always pointing to the same outcome. And even without yet saying the final word, the boy already treated that process as something known, complete, and finished. There wasn't another way, he said once. The body went as far as it could. Block 4 ends with the certainty that what the boy is describing is not mere fatigue or discomfort, but the precise recognition of a physical collapse lived before, a point where the body stops fighting, stops compensating, and begins, silently and irreversibly, to move toward the end.
Block 5. What doesn't come back whole. Final version with CTA. The last memories do not appear as long scenes. They come in short fragments, as if the body no longer has the energy to sustain a complete sequence. Whenever the boy approaches this point, his behavior changes before the words. His breathing shortens, not abruptly, but irregularly. His shoulders rise less. His chest barely moves. It is as if the body knows exactly what comes next. That was the day it didn't come back, he says. His mother asks what didn't come back. The body, he answers without hesitation. He explains that on that day, the heat was no different from the others. That detail matters to him. It wasn't a sudden event, it wasn't unexpected. It was already like that, he explains. It just didn't stop before. The boy says he woke up tired, more than usual. There was no sharp pain, there was weight. Every movement seemed to require a calculation the body could no longer perform properly. I could feel the air, he says, but it didn't go all the way in. He makes a gesture with his hand, pulling in a short, shallow breath. It was like drinking just a little, he adds. It didn't kill the thirst. He describes trying to stand, but his legs didn't respond the way they used to. They didn't fail suddenly, they simply didn't complete the movement. I thought about getting up, he says, but the body stayed. He says he fell, not like a sudden stumble, but like someone giving up on holding their own weight. The ground was hot, he remembers. It always was. Lying there, he realized that sweating no longer helped. His skin was hot, but there was no relief. The heat didn't leave. The body didn't cool anymore, it just stayed. His breathing grew even shorter. There was no strength to try a deep breath. There was no panic, only the sense that insisting was pointless. I tried to pull the air in, he explains, but it was too small. His arms began to lose strength. His hands opened on their own. His fingers no longer obeyed. I couldn't hold on, he says. They just opened. His head felt light. His vision darkened around the edges, slowly, as if the world were being reduced. Everything felt far away, he explains, even when it was close. He remembers trying to speak, but no sound came out, not because his mouth wouldn't move, but because the air could no longer support his voice. I knew, he says simply, that I wasn't going to come back. His mother asks how he knew. Because the body had already stopped trying. The last sensation he describes is not pain, it is total weakness. There was no strength left for anything,
not even to think. The body became still. His breathing grew too shallow to continue. The heat remained, but it no longer mattered. Then it ended, he says. There is a brief silence. I died there. He doesn't say it as a revelation, he says it as a confirmation. His mother asks what happened after that. The boy thinks for a few seconds. Nothing. Nothing how? Nothing at all. He explains that there was no dream, no light, no different sensation. There was interruption. It was like switching off. There was no body. He pauses, then adds, "Then I woke up small here." The sentence is not emotionally charged. It comes as a logical sequence. I was someone else before. That body stayed there. This one started here. He looks at his own hands, clenches his fingers tightly, then relaxes them. This one works differently, he says. It can handle more now. The silence that remains is not shock, it is discomfort. Because what this child described does not sound like imagination. It sounds like bodily memory of a real ending, followed by a beginning that wasn't chosen, only continued. And this is exactly where the story stops being only his. If this account caused you strangeness, discomfort, or doubt, write in the comments what caught your attention the most, the body, the environment, or the way death was described. Stories like this are not unique on this channel. They form a pattern. If you want to follow other cases of children who remember where they died before being born, subscribe to the channel. The next accounts make this pattern even harder to ignore. Because sometimes, what is frightening is not the idea of reincarnation, it's the precision with which some children remember the end of a previous life.